From the Fathead Studio in Speedway, Indiana, this is The Skinny.
Oh, there you are, sweet Jesus. Come back to Papa.
The highs and lows, are just can be pretty brutal, that place. But, I think that's what is so fun about it is the challenges.
I saw Will Power smack the wall out of 4 with 10 to go. He's still going.
Dixon?
No. Connor.
Oh, Connor, yeah.
Yeah, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, Connor, and, you got to pick a direction, pal, and I'll stick with you.
Oh, I don't know. You lose track about halfway through.
I go to move when it's full of methanol. Both of them are full of methanol. Big bang. I turn around and the glasses are smoking. And he goes, whoa, good thing he gave me those, right?
I'm Scott Dixon.
I'm Antron Brown.
Hey, I'm Ron Cap.
I'm Connor Daly.
I'm James Hinchcliffe.
I'm Corey Reed.
And I'm Joey Gladstone, and this is The Skinny.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Big House. We're coming to you remotely for the first time with The Skinny. Ken Stout, Rico, Elmore sitting alongside. We're at Crandon International Raceway, one of the most historic short course off-road racetracks in the world, and certainly the home of the largest short course off-road race in the country. They come here, they call it Fall Crandon, and it's the big one. It's when the Pro 2s take on the Pro 4s. They race all day. Really, they race for 4 days, to be honest with you, but the big payoff certainly happens on Sunday. And we're downstairs in the VIP bar area, if you will, and they've secluded this off for us, so we're looking forward to having a great time. As I mentioned before, we have an entire staff back behind us. We thank them as well for all their efforts to put this together. And we have a short course champion sitting right alongside us here as well. Mr. Cameron Steele has joined us, and he came in. We'll do some announcing here over the course of the weekend once again. Great to have him back inside the booth, but of course, as a driver, he's second to none. Has had the privilege of winning the largest desert race on the planet as well, the Baja 1000. So welcome, my friend. Great to have you.
I'm stoked to be here. You know what? The second you walk up, you feel the vibe and the energy. Driving through town here in Crandon is just unbelievable. But once you step into the pits and step into the paddock, it's just like, you hear cars going through the turns. It's just like blows your mind. It's yes, the Baja 1000 is home for me, but coming here to Crandon is absolutely spectacular.
You spent a lot of time in short course, pro buggy champion, also drove some pro light stuff. You and I were in the booth for a number of years. I was surprised, though, that you've never actually raced here at this track.
I'm actually surprised as well because we spent so much time racing short course. Growing up, I raced at the Riverside International Raceway, the World Championships. The Score used to do, had some success there. I raced local short course. And so when the opportunity came up to race the Lucas Series, it was a perfect fit. We won a bunch of races in Pro Buggy, Pro Light, but I never made my way here. And we talked about the trajectory of getting here. And I think just the biggest problem for me was running a whole program and team that's going to Baja, which is the whole other direction, makes it hard to jump over to the other side of the country for me.
Safe to call this one the most exciting turn one in all of motorsports?
No doubt. You can kind of go through some of the things you think about. Like I watched the Indy 500 start this year. Of course, that's exciting. But when you line the trucks up so wide and too deep, or whatever the number of lines is, it's incredible to see the horsepower come together. And what I think is really different from all other forms of motorsports is the undulating drop-away corner. And it's almost seems like it's you can control your pace kind of, but you can't control anything around you, which is the same in all motorsports. But with the turf setting you drifting and the speed carrying you to the outside, there's nothing like it. And so I brought someone from my team with me to come watch for the first time. And the number one thing they want to see is turn one. There's nothing like it.
So as we describe it, and we'll give the fans at home a view as well, courtesy of some nice B-roll footage here. But when you get on that starting line, I don't think it translates to TV perfectly, but it is far from even. It's not a level field. It's a field with ups and downs depending on where your lane is. And then by the time you get to turn one, you're going the better part of 100 plus miles per hour for the Pro 2s, the Pro 4s. And then as you mentioned, there's enough room and they will use every inch of it. They'll go 6, 7 wide through turn one.
They will. And like we're talking about, everybody seems to think it's like this big graded plateau that kind of forms nicely in the corner, but it's not. You watch the cars, they're moving around, they're going side to side, they're looking for that prime line. But even as a driver, you're not even sure you're going to hit that right line because the siding spots, from what I've seen, just walking out there, it's hard to line up exactly where you're going to hit it. Even if you're the first truck there, I don't think it's guaranteed to be perfect. And the biggest thing I think is the way it pushes you. It drops down and away to the outside, and it's a tricky spot to be driving a race car at 100 miles an hour.
So let me ask you a question, because I think you alluded to the fact that it's basically a blind turn. The arch, the turn itself is so long, and the fact that it's falling away, you can't see the exit, and that's the issue.
I think so, because it gives you really a hard spot to line up. When you try to look outside in a further distance as a race car driver, it's hard to make that lineup. You're so focused on what you're doing here. Your sighting spot has to be a little bit closer. You're in your peripheral. If you try to sight way out to the outside to the other side of the track, it's going to be really hard to do. So it's one of the things that I think is really bizarre. And then a lot of people don't realize either that in short course racing and most all racing, you can't see what's next to you. So you can kind of gauge like how you got someone on the line or how they got you, but you're not really sure who's where and who has a run, because that's the other thing. When it's watered and it undulates, you break traction or you get traction. Someone could all of a sudden fire up alongside of you that you don't expect, and you're trying to fill this line to the right, and all of a sudden, boom, someone's there, and you're like, oh, I'm going back. Oh, someone's there. And that's what typically happens. I mean, that's what causes so much excitement, and I always just pray that everybody gets through there clean, but a little bit of contact is okay with me.
Yeah, and they've certainly had that over the course of the years, a little bit of contact here. I mean, for sure, Johnny Greaves is a good example. Man, he's gone for some really scary rides here out of turn one on that initial start, and it only takes a small bump. I mean, they're all hanging on the edge, inside tires, barely touching the ground, dangling. I mean, it just takes a wisp, and somebody's going for a ride.
And your natural reaction, you've got to think about it, right? If you get bumped, you don't want to lift, but your natural reaction is to like check just a little bit, right? But you need, in my opinion, you would stay in it to hold your line and keep your momentum, because in motocross, if you're the guy that lets off, you're the guy that goes down. And I kind of think the same thing happens with off-road racing. But like I said, that natural, like if you don't know what's coming and it comes, it startles you. So you gotta have presence of mind of what you're gonna do when it happens, because it's not if, it's when you're going to have contact.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of racing here one time. I'd never been through turn one, and there's just no way to put it into words. I balled it up in the gravel pit during a test session, and it'll eat you that this track has some teeth to it in some different areas, and it's funny how you have to drive the different corners.
I think the trickiest part for the drivers, especially a new driver here, is just like the start. None of it all looks like poetry in motion, right? When they're sliding it and it looks perfect, it seems like it is, but really there's so many challenging, unsightable turns, so many drop away sections, places with undulations, and of course the ruts develop. It looks like when you just take one big look at it, it looks like this really awesome groomed fast track, but you got to be careful because there's a lot of different places that can bite you.
This guy is multifaceted, no question about that. We've been talking about Crandon International Off-Road Raceway. He's a champion, of course, in short course. He's also a champion out on the desert. When we make our trip back here to Crandon, we'll ask him what it's like to run Baja and win.
It's great racing, but it's great personality. It's great fans. It's great ownership. It's great everything. When you come to Crandon, it is the best of everything you can imagine.
The Skinny is brought to you by Toyota. Toyota, let's go places. Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil, keep that engine alive. General Tire. General Tire delivers. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04.
Welcome back to Crandon International Raceway and the Skinny. Ken Stout, Rico Elmore sitting alongside, and we have my buddy Cameron Steele on here. We've worked together for many, many years. Just an outstanding individual, a Hall of Famer as well, and no easy task to get into that Hall of Fame, in part because of his success down at Baja. But as I bring up the Hall of Fame, the reason I do that is there was a massive announcement made here at Crandon on Thursday night where now they've aligned with short course off-road, in large part to Marty Fiocca and the efforts to give the short course off-road racers a lane so that they could have a Hall of Fame as well, I think is a great step.
I do too, and I think aligning with Crandon, it makes a huge amount of sense because two iconic pieces of the off-road community working together to create a place for the history to live and to tell that story of history. And as you said, Marty Fiocca, who's a member of the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame, he is someone that really cherishes the sport and takes it to his heart. And for him to be able to put that together and it'll give him something to be able to drive the sport in that direction. I think that Marty does a great job, and I think having that kinship between the Crandon and the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame is a no-brainer. So many great drivers, so much great history in our sport happened right here.
So my guess is I certainly did not realize how difficult it was to get in and some of the criteria that it takes to get in. But explain to the fans what all is involved, because you can go out and, let's say, win 6 championships or 9 championships. That doesn't necessarily mean you qualify to get into the Off-Road Hall of Fame.
For sure. Well, I've never been on the inside of the committee, but I understand there's a voting committee, and first thing that has to happen is someone has to nominate you. So, and it's a pretty extensive package, and I think a lot of times people start filling it out and they probably realize they don't have enough information or enough stats to get in. But there are no sure things for sure. And I personally, from the backside, I know of a couple people that haven't got in, which really surprised me. And I've been vocal about that a little bit over the years. But at the same time, I have to respect it, because that committee takes a look at all the people that are nominated that year. So not only the people that are nominated that year, but your nomination lasts for 3 years. So your nomination keeps coming back up along with everybody else that's been added. If you don't make it in those 3 years, then you drop out for 3 years before you can be resubmitted. And so it's a vote by a board. And what happens is they take the entire board, I think it's 20, and they vote, and they have a break number, like a 6, to get you to the next level. Once they get to the next level, they re-vote. And then I don't know if it's a percentage or it takes a certain number of votes to get you over the hump. But I was asked to write some letters for people this last year. Being a Hall of Famer, people have reached out to me to write letters of why I think someone should be in the Hall of Fame. It's pretty crazy. It's an honor to be able to do that. But at the same time, you write these incredible letters and thoughts about these people, and then they don't make it. And you're like, wow, I mean, who made it? But then when you see some of the names that did make it this year, it's pretty staggering. I mean, Randy Anderson, of course, and Butch Dean. I mean, so many great names that are involved with this year's class. So you can understand how if there's 40 or 50 nominations and they just come down, I think it's 7 that made it in. It's pretty wild. I mean, it's a shootout to get in there.
It's stuff that as short course racers, we've been talking about for 20 years. We need a home. We need a place to put this together. And with Marty Fioca's position here at Crandon and his position there in the Hall of Fame, he was a perfect liaison, if you will, to bring the two together. Because if you're going to have a Hall of Fame for short course, this is the home.
Yeah, there's nowhere else you would put it. There's nowhere else to even consider, to be honest with you. It's there are other great racetracks and great events over the years, but this has withstood the test of time. But more than that, when we talk about having that entire piece, right? It's great racing, but it's great personality. It's great fans. It's great ownership. It's great everything. When you come to Crandon, it is the best of everything you can imagine, and it has the heart and soul, and that's why it's a great place for it.
Yeah, if you're going to win a race in short course off-road racing, if you only get one in your career, you want it to happen right here, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned the Indianapolis 500, the Daytona 500, the U.S. Nationals, as you talked about, for drag racing. This Crandon, Fall Crandon,
yeah,
that's our big one.
It's the Baja 1000
it is.
Of short course off-road, 100%. You know, and there's, for me in my career, now in my, I believe, 19th year of trophy truck racing, and I've been racing off-road cars, started as a navigator in 82 and driving in 85. Being able to
it's like a Fred Flintstone car?
That's crazy. That's why my number 16, because I drove 1600cc Baja Bugs and buggies. And so when I went to Trophy Truck, I asked if that number was available. And that's where that number came from. But yeah, we go way back. But just being able to put my family's name on the overall championship for the Baja 1000. You know, my dad unfortunately passed away that year, so he didn't get to see it happen. But, you know, he started racing. He was a guest of Parnelli Jones in 1970. He knew Mickey Thompson, and he raced his first race in 71. I mean, my dad was all in. And so I'm stoked to be able to represent that for my family.
Big Papa.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Is that what got you there?
Oh, for sure. My dad gave everything for us to go racing as kids, you know, whether it was dirt bikes. You know, I made a progression through dirt bikes where I ended up racing Supercross, not very well, but I did all of that as well. And my brother did the same. But my dad gave us all those opportunities. But I should also say my mom sacrificed so much to make it happen. She used to walk by the race cars when we had them in our garage. Now we all have big race shops and stuff. But she'd walk by the race car and say, "There's my couches. There's the couches I wanted to buy right there." And we would just laugh and ha, 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 ha. But she was a huge supporter. So I'm bummed my parents were gone before we could win the Baja 1000 overall, but I'm stoked to be able to put our family name on it. They earned it for sure, more so than I did even.
Yeah, speaking of being an ambassador, there's no better ambassador for Baja and the relationship with desert racing than you. And I'm sure that was a large part of you being inducted into the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame for sure. But you're not just a racer. You're a multifaceted guy. You get pretty complex. When we come back from this commercial break, we're going to pick your brain about it.
Awesome. Just back in the days when I announced Supercross, where I'd go down on the track walk the day before and some of the big riders wouldn't want to talk to me because the week before I said something, but
we have a great set down here in the VIP bar area of Crandon International Raceway this week for the Skinny. Ken Stout, Rico Elmore, and Cameron Steele sitting alongside. We've talked about Cameron's accomplishments behind the wheel of a race car, but did you realize that he's also a very talented surfer? Yeah, he's been living in Southern California for a number of years.
My whole life.
And very close to the beach.
Yep, actually, true story. I was born in San Francisco, moved to South Orange County by the time I was a wee one. And so I've spent most of my entire life that I can remember in South Orange County. So yes, I did ride waves for a living. Rode on the U.S. tour as a professional bodyboarder for 6 years, I think. Surfed at the Pipeline event or bodyboarded at the Pipeline event 5 times. Highest placing non-Hawaiian once. So those are some stats that I love. But, more importantly, I think, just all around being able to be a part of that action sports transition. X Games started happening. I had basically left Supercross racing and I was going to kind of hang up the motorcycle. And then all of a sudden there was this freestyle thing and I started hitting the ramps, going to the hills and jumping. And although I wasn't very good at that either, that's how I found they found me as the mouth of freestyle motocross and ended up announcing for 18 years of X Games. So that was really great. And I still work with X Games now. I started in 99. My shows like Rip to Cabo and Trail Emissions are actually on World of X Games still. So I'm still technically an X Games commentator. I started in 98, so that's 24 years of commentating with ESPN and the X Games.
Yeah, you had to see some unbelievable stuff.
Unbelievable. Oh my God. I was there the day that they first lit off the motorcycles on the pier in San Francisco. So they never had dirt bikes before and they had all the other sports and everybody was practicing. There's fans everywhere. They started the bikes. And I was up in the tower, the announce tower, and it just was a mad rush of humans all came flying over because no one knew what to expect. That same weekend, if I'm not mistaken, Tony Hawk landed the 900. And so I got to become friends and be around great athletes. Dave Mira, who's now passed, unfortunately. So many great freestyle motocross riders. I was able to host surfing at the X Games for a couple years. Just, the trajectory of life is interesting. I did sports as a youngster and then all of a sudden I was able to commentate them. But through that, I've been able to proliferate being an off-road racer the entire time. And that's what's been the greatest thing is I've been able to stick to my roots of Baja, which is my first love. Outside of my wife and kids, there's nothing I love more than being on the Baja Peninsula. And all the things that I've done have afforded me the ability to go there and have some personality and some clout and the sponsors appreciate it. And being a sponsored person is not easy, but it sure gives us a glorious opportunity.
Yeah, you've always spoke well, of course, helps keep you in the seat, but your attention to detail, your mindset as being a competitor, and then knowing what that's like and being able to relay that to the fans at home is something that you're in your own lane. You have a unique language, a Cameron Steele language, if you will, and the words that you choose and when you choose them, it makes you somebody a little different and special, but you're so easy to understand, and I think you really relay.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Ken. Thank you. And working with you for a decade or more has been awesome. Sometimes I think it costs me work too. Sometimes I think some people think I'm too relaxed, and I don't always want to go to the meetings. I don't always write the notes, but I kind of like let it fly, and I take it all in. And I try to give this great
California cool. I don't always want to go to the meetings.
Yeah, I have this kind of weird innate ability to talk about what I'm seeing and remember all these stats. Not like you're the stat man, but I feel like I can remember all these different things that happened over the years and push them into the content with loosely. And I think that people appreciate it. And yes, I call people out for squirreling out in the corners. They drop some nuts there for the squirrels to gather up. Maybe some drivers don't like that. There's times back in the days when I announced Supercross where I'd go down on the track walk the day before and some of the big riders wouldn't want to talk to me because the week before I said something, but always in pure truth, always in truth, and never trying to be mean in any way, but always speaking the truth. And I think that that's what the fans appreciate,
It's great to watch because that's the excitement of it, especially somebody that's been there, done that, or is so entrenched in it, that they actually know the ins and outs, what people are doing, why they did what. And Tony Stewart, another great friend, on the telecast for Fox, they brought him in for that reason. You know what I mean? To lay it out there, and I think it's a great style. So
I do too, but I also think that there's a spot for commentators that weren't athletes, and there's been some great ones along the years that I think that have become almost more of an expert in some ways in their sports than the drivers themselves that come up to the booth. So there's a few that Todd Harris, I think, is an incredible commentator for Supercross and sport. Someone who didn't ride the sport, but someone who really loved it and embraced it and made it happen. I mean, those people are so important to the sport because they carry the show, they carry it, and they tee up that expert. Without someone that knows it and has heart for it to tee up that expert, it doesn't ever work.
That's why we got Stout.
I think I would say, without, just because you're sitting here, I don't want to say it, but you're probably the best commentator I've ever worked with. Most stats in your head, most memory, know all the athletes that you're working with, have been down in the dirt, whether you race on the track or not. You're down there paying attention and understanding it. I would say, bar none, best partner I've ever had.
So you guys did capture that, right? I mean, did you record that?
I see red lights on the camera, so I think you're gold.
There, Steve. Great edit point.
No, I did not pay, but I might have to now. Cameron Steele's in the studio with us. When we come back, we'll ask him a little bit more about some of the talents that he has. You'll never believe what this guy can do.
But it took out at least 20 guys tipping over, falling over. And yeah, we might go through there on purpose because it's kind of funny, but it did catch me. No one gets hurt.
The Skinny is brought to you by Lucas Oil. Lucas Oil, keep that engine alive. Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04. Toyota, let's go places. And General Tire delivered.
Welcome back to the Skinny. We have Cameron Steele on the set with us here at Crandon International Raceway, and he just had a broadcast that aired, was it on Fox?
ESPN.
On ESPN. So, but I want to talk about how it began and then how it developed. The one that I always remember, just because it rolls off the tongue, is Ripped to the Tip. But was that the first one? I mean,
that was.
Explain what these are.
So outside of our racing and my commentary, one of the things I love is camaraderie and people. And so once upon a time, I was taking my friends for a dirt bike ride out in the middle of the desert in Ocotillo Wells. And one of my buddies is like, we should do something bigger. I said, I can take you for a ride in Baja. And he said, let's do it. And 2 months later, Rip to the Tip was born. This was in 2006. And now it's called Rip to Cabo. We're 17 years into it. Next year will be our 18th year. And it's a passion for me. It's not really a job. It's not just everybody can sign up. It's not like a tour company. It's our trip, the brothers that come with us, and we experience the Baja Peninsula probably like many other people do, but in our passionate way. And we ride from the top, from the U.S. border. We ride our dirt bikes into Mexico and ride them all the way to the office in Cabo San Lucas. And this year we had 32 riders. The broadcast just aired on ESPN2. Had great ratings, actually. I'm super stoked to hear the overnights. It's fun because it's one of the few things that's on TV that's not a race. So you can kind of open up the personalities and the challenge and the battle it takes to go off-roading or live that. We also do it in trucks called Trail of Missions. So really, I think what you're asking is about my passion for sharing Baja. We try to do fundraising and give backs everywhere we go. We try to be with the locals. Like on our last trip, we showed on TV, Alfredo Melling led us on his own private trail from his family's ranch. This year we raised $469,000 for orphans and kids in need at Rancho Santa Marta School and Orphanage. So we're trying to do more than just go ride our dirt bikes, but we are dirty dirt bikers. We do make dust, we do cause trouble, but we're trying to be do-gooders at the same time. But for me, what you're talking about is just the overall passion of the Baja Peninsula. I love to share it with my kids, other people's kids, families, dirt bike friends. I mean, around the world. I have people messaging me from all over the world asking about going to Baja, and it's the best thing in the world.
I saw one of the clips out of this thing, and everybody was in what looked like dunes. I mean, they were all literally digging their dirt bikes out. I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I'm not sure if that looks like fun.
There's a shot of me in there going over the bars.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, there's a shot in there. I never sugarcoat it. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it's some of the Baja is so tricky, you know, and yes, it's dangerous, but it's also magnificent. But this particular set of dunes, when it's moist out and the sea air is up, like there's been waves, the dunes get more packed in and you can ride right across them. But when it's been windy and it starts swirling the dunes around it, and honestly, they're only about as high as this room right here. It's not like giant sand dunes, but it took out at least 20 guys tipping over, falling over. And yeah, we might go through there on purpose because it's kind of funny, but it did catch me. No one gets hurt. And I call them quicksand dunes. It's a surprise for everybody.
Yeah, it looked like a blast. And I mean, I want to do this. I've been threatening to go with him, especially the truck ride.
You should come on the truck trip. You definitely should come on trail missions. There's very few things I do in the world that compare to that.
So the trail of missions, is that the give back side as well?
That's part of it. The trail of missions is our truck trip where we follow the mission trail. As most people know, the Spanish missionaries came and they landed in, they landed a couple spots, but they made the first mission that stayed put in 1697 in Loreto. And then that trail goes all the way up through Baja and all the way up into the Californias. There's 27 mission and visita locations in Baja California, and some of them are still stark in the middle of nowhere with a perfect mission still there. Some are just ruins, some are impossible to get to, there's a paved road that comes right up to them. Like in San Ignacio, there's a town square there with these giant trees that have been there hundreds of years. The mission was founded in 1728, I think it is, and the building that's there was built in 1740. And it's just amazing to think that all this was done before the United States was even the United States. I mean, there's a lot of history. Not like going to Europe where there's really ancient history, but there's great history that's very easy to get to and not cluttered and not filled with tourists.
Right. And I love the give back part that you were talking about, the $400 and some $1,000. That has to be huge.
It makes
on their for their operation.
Yeah, that particular school and orphanage, they house up to 50 kids legally, and they have 250 kids bust in from all over the western northern coast of Baja. We also try to do work with groups where they're feeding different places, rescue operations, trying to help build a fire station and ambulance center in El Rosario. So there's a couple different things that we do down there, but giving back is important. But giving back can be as simple as high-fiving one of the kids when there's no COVID and giving them stickers and posters and inspiring them, because those kids keep coming back and coming back. And there's even a kid that we know down there who started out as a kid that wanted autographs and stickers. Then he wanted jerseys, and then he wanted to find a better way for himself to go. He found himself in college in Ensenada, and he's grown up to own his own company that's off-road inspired, where he sells t-shirts and hats, and it's great to see. That's so awesome. Inspiring someone can be as equal of a give back, and I think that's very cool. And off-roaders in general are very kind and generous people, and they really have a great kinship with the people of Baja. Multiple generations of the people of Baja love off-roading.
It's a great place down there, and I've always said that the Baja and all that stuff, I would love to go experience it. Of course, Jordan and those guys have forever. So, well,
to tell you how important Crandon is to me, I'm supposed to be in Cabo this week, and I chose to cancel the trip to come to Crandon when I got the opportunity.
Now that speaks big for sure. And when we come back here, we're going to take another quick break here in just a moment. But when we come back, I want you to take us for a ride in Baja. The highs, the lows. It is the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. You can certainly lose your life out there. You've lost friends along the way. You've also stood on top of the box. So there's nobody better to pick a brain than this guy right here about how to compete at Baja and what it takes to be successful.
I'm just going. You don't know. You don't know what's out there. Only what your lights can see.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy sport. It really is amazing.
Welcome back to the Skinny. Ken Stout, Rico Elmore, and this guy, Mr. Cameron Steele, sitting right alongside. We talk a lot about Baja when Cameron's on the show, and that's because it's really a massive part of his life. He's been going down there since you were 2 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Big Papa took you down there, and it became a part of your life. And, of course, your career developed. You talked about running 1,600 cars and eventually worked your way up into, the trophy trucks, the kings of the sport now. Your business side is nothing short of exceptional. One of the first athletes for Monster. You're still there 30 years later. I mean, it's been an incredible run.
For sure.
But I want to hear about Baja. I want to know how tough it is to make that program work. 2017, the 50th, I know you wanted to win that thing. You miss it by one spot. And that race dealt you some tough blows. You were so close. I remember you'd be leading right at the very end and something would bite you. Finally, 2018, you put it all together.
Oh, Baja is tough, I got to tell you. And I don't really think that we go down there and compete against the other drivers. We're really trying to compete for Baja's favor. You win when Baja allows you to win. So you have to have the perfect run because there are so many great teams and there's so many unpredictable things that can happen when you're racing Baja. Our trucks do have the capability of going 140 miles an hour. They'll go through the bumps at 100 miles an hour. And you got to remember, we're racing them for 1,200 miles. So the abuse the equipment takes is one thing, but now mix in the fans, oncoming traffic, day and night, blinding dust, livestock of all kinds, horses, cows, donkeys, dogs. I mean, all this going on at the same time. Plus, now you're changing terrain all the time. You're on a graded road, you're in a rocky wash, you're on the sand wash. You're on a graded road, you're on a 2-track, you're dodging through cactus back and forth. It's ever changing, and you can pre-run it, yes, like you do at the short course, but the next time you come through it, someone could have knocked a rock in, someone could have broke a cactus off, and it's in the race course. So it's ever evolving. So I think the biggest struggle with Baja is that mental fraught that you're constantly wondering what change or what curveball is coming at you, because it's never going to be a perfect run down a straight graded road. That's just not the way it plays. It doesn't play nice like that. But when it's your time, it's your time. Like you said, we finished on the podium in the last 3 Peninsula runs. In 14, we were third. We were second in 17, but then we were also second again third this last year. So the last 3 Peninsula runs, that's the one we want to win. We did win the loop race Baja 1000. Yes, it's still the Baja 1000. But our goal and our life's goal achievement is to make that Peninsula run when they just announced they're racing the Peninsula again next year. So we're all in and very engaged. But the speed and the uncertainty doesn't come without danger and consequence, and we've lost friends there. All forms of motorsports are dangerous. For me, I have a passion for safety and trying to help people, and having the equivalent of my son Ox die in Baja, not in a race but in a fun ride, ripped to the tip, was something that's been crushing for me in my life. As you know, we were commentating at the time. I came back to commentating. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything. Now, 11 years later, it still brings tears to my eyes, obviously, and it's very hard to talk about. But I've flipped it around a little bit, not just Ox, but the loss of Kurt Caselli, who did die during a race, and others that have also passed that way. I flipped it around to, like, this is what we do, and that we have to smile and go out and do it and be passionate about it. I just lost someone that's like my brother, Trigger Gum. He rode Rip to Cabo, Rip to the Tip. He raced the score races. And I went to his service, and yeah, I had tears, but I'm here a week later saying, we got to go. We got to go do what we do, because no one that passes away wants anybody to sit around and cry and mope. Yeah, they want to be respected, but we got to get the hell out there, make dust, ride wheelies, talk crap, and do what we do, because that's what we did with them. And so I in this last decade of learning after Jeff passed away, I've started to understand a little bit more about it. And then with my dad dying in 18, I could take some positive out of that. He rode behind my seat. His ashes did in the race truck. So yeah, it's a tough sport, man. Racing a Baja is, it's not for the faint of heart. We go down there with 100 people. So you got to count on 100 people being safe, 100 people hitting their marks. and then having no one else mess that up from the other teams, like by getting in the way or blocking a pit or getting stuck or someone can't get through, or there's a cow that's dead on the highway and people can't get through, or there's a flash flood because there's a hurricane. I mean, it takes an act of God to win that race. Thankfully, we won it. So now we can relax a little bit and hopefully go back and do it again a couple more times before we retire, because eventually, although I feel like I'm at the best I've ever been, it won't be long before I'm not able to keep doing this off-road racing the way we are.
Yeah, that's one of the one of the funnier stories was Morgan Lucas Oil, and J.R. Todd. They ran one of the Baja deals, and they ended up upside down in the middle of nowhere. And JR told Morgan, he said, if you're the last person I see before I die, I'm going to be miserable. and he said he heard a truck way in the distance. Wow, wow, wow. And Robbie Gordon just blows by him, throws, all over the place. Eventually they were found, but it was, they were telling that story. I was like, well, maybe I don't think that's a good idea.
You're very alone. And one thing that we brought Buddy Rice to the Baja 1000 in 2005 after he won the Indy 500.
Yeah.
The first thing he commentated on, we went down and we went to pre-run or do course reconnaissance. We parked with our competitors, and he's like, you're hanging out with the guys you're racing against. He goes, we do that, but no one really is hanging out that tight. We went pre-running with our competitors, and he was blown away by it. But that you count on 100%, you're counting on the other drivers, because in off-road racing, specifically in Baja, there's very few fans. Check that. There's a lot of fans, but they're in areas where they can get to. There's a lot of seclusion. At night, you're by yourself. You're upside down. The only people that are coming to help you are racers. And so you got to be good with your fellow racers, and we count on them in life and death situations.
How many miles or how long through the night is it that you think you're in seclusion like that, what you're just talking about?
Well, with the peninsula run, what happens is you start in a really populated area in the Ensenada area, and you race down through San Felipe or the coastal area. So when it gets dark, you've just hit what I call the never, which is you're never going to see anybody. You're never going to have any help. You're never going to have any communications. There's never going to be any services, the never. So basically, we race through the never all night long. We go through a couple small towns, but for the most part, the whole time at night, you're isolated. I mean, if it's 10 hours of dark you're racing in, 8.5 hours out or more are just empty.
In the middle of
nowhere.
And I mean black, like you
Black,
can't
nothing.
see your hand in front of your face.
Nope.
Like you're driving across
Depends on the moon. If you have a zero moon, that's one thing. If you have a full moon, then you can see around a little bit. It helps, because one thing people don't realize, a lot of people pre-run during the day, there's no sight navigation at night. You're like, oh, this arroyo is coming up because this giant cliff is coming in, right? And this mesa is going to come in right here, and the race course is going to go right here. But at night, you're like, oh, it's just black. I'm just going. You don't know. You don't know what's out there. Only what your lights can see.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy sport. It really is amazing. And I think that's why it has such great tradition, and it holds its position in the sporting world. Anybody that hears Baja, they think of Baja 1000, and any place I've gone in motorsports as a commentator, everybody wants to ask me about the Baja 1000.
It's not for the faint of heart, that is for sure. We'll ask about more when we come back.
My race team says we got third place all the time, and they sent me a plaque with a picture of a poop on it. That I cost everybody the race.
The Skinny is brought to you by General Tire. General Tire delivers. Toyota. Let's go places. Lucas Oil. Keep that engine alive. And Fatheads Eyewear. Fatheads Eyewear, hardcore since '04.
We're back here at Crandon International Raceway with the Skinny, and we have Cameron Steele on the set with us here as well. We were talking about Baja and the crazy things that can go wrong out there in the desert, and it's an endless sea of potential things to go wrong. But one of the stories that I heard, and I've often wondered why they send the motorcycles first, but they send the bikes first, right? And then they follow up with trophy trucks. But one of the stories that I heard, and of course Larry Rosser, one of our friends, an absolute monster out there, but one of the bike riders had crashed, broke a leg. It's the middle of the night. He knows the trucks are coming. and literally has to crawl out of the path of where he believes they're going to come. Like you said before, cactus around, snakes, who knows? I mean, I just can't imagine what it's like.
When you're riding or racing a bike down there, there's a lot of solitude. There's a lot of helmet time and brain. You talk to yourself. You think about life. I actually, when I'm down there riding my dirt bike, I think about my family a lot and how much I miss them, and also try to be careful because of that. But yeah, they send the bikes before the trophy trucks. I don't think that they have figured out a way to do them on separate days altogether, but they've been making the gap bigger and bigger. And I think they try to engineer it so we catch the bikes in the dark so that they can see all the lights coming. So it's not a surprise to them. The bike riders are crazy, in my opinion. I've raced a bike in Baja, and I can tell you that it is a very crazy thing to try to go fast. I didn't try to go as fast as I could, but the bike guys, I mean, they're putting so much on the line. And it is an incredible sport, but the rocks become that much more treacherous, as do the livestock. That's how, riders have had that problem with livestock coming out in front of them on the road. I think it's suspected that that's how Kurt passed away, was from livestock walking out in front of him. But it's a sport of gladiators when you're on a motorcycle down there.
Some of those guys Ironman that thing.
They do. I have a friend we pre-ran with quite a bit. We have a friend that rides on Rip to Cabo, two of them actually. One that won the Ironman Baja 1000, and one that just won the San Felipe 250 as the Ironman. He rides with us on Rip to Cabo, and he's chasing that championship right now. His name's Brandon Wright. We call him Fast Grandpa. He's only 48, but he has a grandkid already. Started early, yeah. He got married really, really young, and so we call him Fast Grandpa. But he's one of the best riders on our crew on Rip to Cabo. But he's going for that title, and I have so much respect, I don't personally like the dirt bikers being out there when the trophy trucks are out there. I don't like anything being out there. I feel like the trophy trucks could be by themselves, but one thing the trophy trucks do bring to the motorcycles that are in front of them and the other cars in back of them is they bring infrastructure. A lot of us bring medics. A lot of us have helicopters. And so the other teams that aren't trophy trucks or aren't better funded teams don't have that infrastructure. So now when you're racing on the peninsula, and granted, the helicopters can't fly at night, but you still have your chase trucks, medical equipment, radios, satellite communications. A lot of teams don't have that. So when we're all racing together at the same time, those comms are around and available, and someone can go to a trophy truck team and say, hey, I need help, and they will help them every single time.
So what do you win?
Nothing. I think when we won the Baja 1000, we won $17,000 in prize money. And we have a $500,000 truck and probably spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $400,000 to go to the race, would be my guess. We did get a nice bonus from our sponsors. I think BF Goodrich that year offered a $50,000 bonus, and we had bonuses from other partners. So the purse isn't the money you race for, but what we did get is this cool little trophy that you can hold like this. It says overall champion on the bottom of it. And when they plunk your down in the dirt or they float your ashes off the rocks in Cabo, that trophy's still sitting somewhere, and someone can say, hey, that donkey won that. So though you can't take the money with you, but you can take the stories, I guess.
But that's
there's nothing, no money.
That's what I love about it. I mean, it's the passion of getting it done. And I mean, even the bonuses and things like that. I mean, as in racing, it's all dangerous, of course, and the danger that's around it. But I mean, that's the allure for many people to watch that. And Forrest Lucas told me something one time long ago. I said, man, it's just weird how these people are so excited about, somebody got hurt pretty bad. And he goes, well, the unfortunate part is some people watch it just for that.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people go to do it and watch it because of the challenge and the danger, like you said. I mean, part of the allure is the challenge, right? You see something that looks so gnarly and you're like, I could maybe do that, So then you go and try to do it. It's just that my only suggestion is to everybody be safe, make good decisions. And the thing I always say, my quote is, if you think it's a bad idea, it probably is.
Yeah. I've got to ask you a question. With all the guys, when you say 100 people on your team, and of course all the other teams that are out there, everybody has to have their own thing, if you will, but is there a rite of passage for the Desert Assassins, the DA? I mean, is Is there something that you get put through when you join the team, if you will?
Well, there's no initiation, so to speak, but you definitely have to have your Baja Savvy on, and so we take people to smaller events, and that's smaller events and rides. So people don't realize it, but we're pre-running all year long being on the peninsula, right? Some people go down there and they pre-run for 2 weeks and they think they're ready for the race. We've been pre-running for 20 years, and so we take people to smaller events. That's when the shenanigans happen. That's when you start messing with people. Everybody has to eat their hot dog or do whatever. And like, there's all these crazy on camera things that we have fun with. It's just, yeah, there's some goofing around, but for the most part, it's very serious. And no one new ever goes to the Baja 1000. You have to be vetted. You have to be on the team at least a couple races before we go there. That's really the main thing. But the hardest thing is you can never get out of the Desert Assassins. You're stuck with us for life. And that's
branded.
You're branded. Yeah, it ruined your career. Ruined it by jumping in with us.
So you guys are in a truck for 1,000 miles. You have to use the restroom. Are you catheterized?
So this is the story. If we have a second, yes, we wear condom catheters. I can't pee in the truck anymore for some reason. With the way the belts are strapped down now, I can't relieve the pressure. But what happened this year is I got sick the day before the race, and so my navigator Cody and I both were sick. Cody told me he was out. I was looking for a replacement navigator 2 hours before the race, halfway down the Baja Peninsula. And I'm going, and so anyway, we get in the race truck. Cody gets in. We race about 6 hours. We're fourth on the road. We're right there for third on time. And I'm like, I got to stop. I call the radio. I'm like, where's Ryan Arciero? Is he around? He can get in the car. We can do a pit stop in 30 seconds. If not, I need 3 minutes. So we pull into Loreto. There's 5,000 people in this canyon, right? Truck pulls in. My guys are there. I jump out. Crazy stories. No one follows me, right? So I run out in the bushes and I suddenly realize I have a jacket on and my gloves on and my driving suit, my helmet skirt. I'm trying to pull all this stuff off to go to the bathroom because I have an emergency situation. It wasn't waiting any longer. The last 20 minutes were like, you're getting close to your house and you gotta go. I knew I was getting close to Loreto and I was gonna stop no matter what, right?
You're right to the second.
So the big joke was, yes, I stopped to use the facilities. I had to go big boy potty. We got third in the race, so my race team says we got third place all the time. God. And they sent me a plaque with a picture of a poop on it. That I cost everybody the race. The good news is I didn't really cost everybody the race, but what cost us the race was a bad transponder where we couldn't run at the speed limit on the highways the whole time. We had to run a couple miles an hour under everybody else. That's where we lost our time. But yes, I gave up 4 minutes pooping in Loreto. Don't tell anybody.
With that, I can't think of a better way to end the show. We'll wrap things up here. Mr. Cameron Steele, now you have a little bit of the skinny about what goes on at Baja with this guy in the Desert Assassins. We'll see you next time.